evaluation be made. In short, Margrave is what we need to talk about today. Do not change the subject. I just invited you in to drink. If you want to chat about something else, then please leave. Then at least prepare some appetizers. Hearing this, Margrave surprisingly did not get angry. Here you go. Saying this, Margrave tossed out a dark bag. These are dried fruits made from the fruits in my orchard. Do you still have an orchard? Out there by the window. Can you see it? Just behind this mansion. The place is very small. Taking care of those fruit trees is my pastime. However, Ethan spit out the dried fruit as soon as he put it in his mouth. What is this exactly? It's bitter and fishy. How should I eat this thing? After I cultivated it so carefully, the fruit that I harvested made you throw up. That's just rude. But that being said, Margrave also threw it up. Although it is a fruit I cultivated, it really tastes bad. There's no other way. I can only give it to you as a gift. Why would you give me something you can't even swallow? I would keep it for myself if I could eat it. Why would I give it to you? At that moment, Ethan completely couldn't find any reason to refute. Crossroad is located at the southern tip of the mainland. Here, there is abundant sunlight and fertile land. There is no land more suitable for planting fruit trees than here. Not only fruits, but also various other crops can be grown here. As long as the land is cultivated, it can produce abundant harvests. If those monsters didn't keep barging in here, even though the monsters destroy the land, it's a problem that farmers lose their lives too. But those guys tried some murky magic on the land when they were being taken out. Do you know what happened next? The area was completely contaminated. Even planting crops couldn't escape the fate of death. In other words, the land has already been cursed. That's why there are no farmlands around Crossroad. Margrave looked at the wine glass with a complex expression. It was brewed using grains and fruits that could not be harvested in this area, representing the royal family's golden wine. Since it has come to this, why do you still take care of the orchard? People live in this world. There will always be a hint of nostalgia in their hearts. That orchard is my nostalgia. Now I won't get drunk easily either. Do you want to guess the reason I came to see you today? I've mentioned it before. If you want to chat about something else, then leave. If you want to drive me away, then go ahead. But let me finish what I want to say before leaving. The monsters are starting to get restless again. And this time, the scale is not to be underestimated. Last time, 1,000 ghost knights invaded, although we tried our best to stop them. But the city wall was severely damaged. And now we are also facing a shortage of soldiers. We urgently need troops now. Margrave, I need those soldiers under your command. Ethan finally revealed his intentions after 3 rounds of drinks. We urgently need troops now. Margrave, I need those soldiers under your command. I do not have any soldiers at my disposal. I am aware that your family possesses soldiers. Indeed, there are some that I personally selected and trained. They are friends who have accompanied me to the battlefield for a lifetime. But when I gave up my position as a lord, when I set down that spear and shield, those friends also laid down their weapons. Now they have all retreated. Please reassemble them. It's no use. The land here no longer has any value to guard. Don't let them risk their lives in vain to defend a worthless front line. Let them escape. Ethan had never expected this, from the distant ancestors to the present. A man from a family that has always been dedicated to guarding this land. You wouldn't expect him to say something like that. I said, Your Highness, why have you come to this land? Everything on this land will eventually head towards death. There is neither a future nor hope. This is a message from a former guardian who wasted their life protecting this place. Here is their advice to you. Leave here. The sooner, the better. Before you are consumed by the curse here. Did your Highness successfully persuade him? No. However, still received a gift. There are no issues that can be resolved in a day. Take it slowly. Speaking of which, has Margrave ever encountered anything? He seems to have experienced something significant. Lucas, do you know? That kid actually made me listen to Margrave personally. Damn, director. Looks like I need to educate him when I go back. In any case, convincing him is a big deal. But before that, we also need to do what we can do well. Because no matter what happens next, the monster's attacks will come as scheduled. And what Ethan needs to do is to efficiently eliminate the monsters as much as possible. We return to Crossroad. There are many things to be done. This time, they will face 3 elite monsters. There are also 3,251 large sewer rats. Time quickly came to the second day. The giant sword on the city wall has been cleared. Today, all the debris will be cleared, officially entering the work of repairing the city wall. The wreckage of the giant sword does not need to be cleared. Just throw it directly in front of the city wall. They will make excellent roadblocks. They can also serve as mouse traps. How long is it expected to repair the city wall? Because the condition of the city wall is worse than expected. Just get to the point. How many days are needed? It will take 10 days. But now there are only 7 days left until the next defense battle. The city walls of Crossroad are the result of Imperial construction technology. Ethan understands that this cannot be simply filled in with stones. I will airlift manpower and materials over. No matter what happens, the city walls must be repaired within a week. Ethan is well aware that this is an unreasonable request, but he can only forcibly urge them to complete it now. Because of the huge rats they encountered in the underground dungeon. There were over 3,000 of them this time. So this defense battle must not be without walls. We will do our best. I will remember your hard work and dedication in my heart. Everyone. This is the work of safeguarding the world. Let's cheer each other on together. In order to successfully guard Crossroad, Ethan started living a monotonous life. He supervises the repair of the defense line on the city wall during the day. At night, he comes to Margrave's house to drink with him. They never chatted again between him and Margrave. Just drinking. The defensive line is also being repaired step by step. The alcohol these days has also put a strain on Ethan's body. Finally, 3 days later, Margrave spoke first. His Royal Highness the Prince. Do you have someone you deeply love? Upon hearing this question, Ethan was a bit confused. He didn't know how to answer. I asked if you have someone you deeply love. Judging by your reaction, you probably don't. Indeed, you don't. Think about it carefully. Are you sure there isn't really someone you deeply love? You should know that Ethan is not a person in this world. He has always been alone in the world where he lives. He has never received anyone's love nor loved anyone. He just lives a lonely life by himself. Later, after he started live streaming, he slowly gained popularity. He received love from many viewers. But those are just one-sided love from the audience towards him. Young man. It looks like your life is very boring. Is staying alone at home and just drinking all you can do? Margrave, do you have someone you deeply love? I used to have one. My wife. She is the only one I have loved all my life. But she passed away 3 years ago. She was torn apart by monsters in the orchard here. So I had to hold a funeral for her with an empty coffin. The Margrave gazed absent-mindedly at his own wineglass. The lord of this land has a curse that has been passed down through generations. It's about the city and the beloved person. They will have to make a choice between the two one day. Without exception. Starting from the distant ancestors who were lords, to my grandfather and my father. Not a single person has escaped that curse. As these words were spoken, the Margrave's hands had begun to tremble uncontrollably. I am the same. Eventually faced with that choice. At that time, the monsters had been quiet for over a decade. The city was peaceful, but revenue had decreased due to the worsening financial situation. So we had to start a new industry no matter what. At that time, my wife suggested farming the land south of the front lines. The land north of the front lines was already saturated. The empty land to the south was indeed very attractive. The frequency of monster appearances decreased. The magical pollution of the land disappeared. It was indeed land suitable for farming. So I expanded the farmland to the south. Subsequently, refugees from other places also heard the news and rushed over. Because there were fewer monsters, it was very easy to drive them away. For a long time, things were indeed resolved very well. And the orchard here sits at the southernmost tip of that reclaimed land. My wife, as the lady of the manor, took the lead in cultivating the land in the most dangerous place. I still remember the scene of my wife feeding me grapes with hands covered in soil. Although the quality of fruits grown in the first year of cultivation here is not good, they are sweeter than anything in the world. So I briefly had that kind of wish. Maybe we don't have to exterminate monsters anymore. Instead, we can live by cultivating the land and harvesting fruits. I ask myself, will I continue to have days like this in the future? The first time, I tasted grapes planted by my wife. Margrave had a wish in his heart. Perhaps we won't have to slay monsters anymore. I asked myself, will days like this continue in the future? Although I know it's an impossible thing. In the second year of cultivation, I received alerts of about 100 monsters approaching the city. I hurried back to the city, while my wife, who stayed at home to take care of the orchard, waved to me and reminded me to be careful. When I arrived in the city, I found out that those guys had split into two groups. About a dozen monsters have broken away from the main force and attacked the farmland. The main force of monsters has started attacking the city. I must make a choice. Whether to save my wife in the farmland or protect the tens of thousands of people in the city. What do you think His Royal Highness the Prince ultimately chose? Ethan was silent for a few seconds. You chose to guard the city. That's right. Just like our family has done for generations. By principles and values. I ultimately chose the city. I locked the city gates and kept the monsters outside. After a few hours of fierce fighting, we finally managed to repel all the creatures. Later, when I hurried back on horseback to the cultivated land, I found that the farmland had been destroyed. All the peasants working on the land had perished. Hundreds of people were torn apart by a dozen monsters, leaving nothing behind. The orchards here, along with my wife, suffered the same fate. I was loyal to my duties. But I lost the most important thing to me. Where did the problem occur? Is it because the defense line against the huge monsters is not strong enough, or is it because I forcibly expanded southward towards the front lines? That's right. It's all my fault. But what really pains me the most is, in the moment of choice, I abandoned my wife. The version of myself that chose the city. My daughter says I'm crazy. She never understands why I didn't choose her mother, but chose the city instead. A few days later, she left. The result of guarding here for a lifetime is this: the wife passed away, and the daughter left me. Leave me here alone to grow old slowly. New Lord. This is just an example. You should know why people call the battle lines here what they do. The city over the graveyard. This city, built on a pile of death, will demand choices from you as well. The moment will come when one must sacrifice what they love most to protect this city. Ethan feels that rather than a curse, this is more like a prophecy. It's as if foretelling an inevitable outcome. Our family has always endured such sacrifices. But I can't let this happen again. I will not pass on this cursed job to my daughter. Sure enough, you return the position in order to prevent your daughter from inheriting the lordship position. That's right. I hope my daughter can leave this cursed land and live a happy and peaceful life. His Royal Highness the Prince. You said let me help you guard the city. I have already tried my best to guard here. Even lost my most important thing. I don't want to continue anymore. I don't want to sacrifice on the city walls. I want to grow old slowly in the orchard here. Reflected in Margrave's eyes in the wine glass. There is no longer a sense of pride in guarding the front line for a lifetime. In his eyes, there was only one man at the last moment. Regret for not being able to protect his wife by his side. Protecting the Margrave of Crossroad for generations. He can only numb himself with alcohol now, so he can drift through this world in a haze. This answer should explain why I don't want to help you anymore. I spoke the truth because I am grateful for your companionship during this time. Please leave. Before you go, let me give you one last piece of advice. If you also encounter that kind of moment, be sure to make a good decision. Don't regret like me. And at this time, there are only 2 days left until Scene 2 begins. Everyone has worked hard. Let's have some food and take a rest. When everyone saw Ethan brought the food, they immediately gathered around. You little brats, finish eating quickly and go back to work. Ethan then asked the person in charge about the progress of the repairs. Thanks to your highness providing sufficient manpower, we should be able to complete the project on time. The city wall will be repaired in 2 more days. Now is the time to start building that one. His Royal Highness the Prince. Can I finally use this now? So this is the magic scroll that Ethan obtained in the dungeon. It was just researched by the alchemist today. Ethan hesitated and used the scroll immediately. After a burst of light, the scroll in Ethan's hand disappeared. Then Ethan started to look for materials to build the cannon tower. The R-grade magic core obtained from the treasure chest before also came in handy. After preparing the materials, Ethan chose the location for building the turret. Instantly, the broken stones on the ground all floated into the air. They assembled into an enormously large cannon under the gaze of the crowd. Just a few seconds passed. A brand new cannon stood tall on the city wall. Seeing the magical architectural technology that had disappeared hundreds of years ago, the alchemist also revealed a look of longing. It is also thanks to you all that such a strong defense line could be built. I will also count on everyone in the future. Ethan left the city wall amidst the cheers of the crowd. He really hopes that this situation can continue indefinitely. After leaving the city wall, he arrived at the blacksmith's shop. He used the materials he had collected before to customize a set of armor for Lucas. This set of armor has average stats, but its attributes have a significant impact. Undead transformation can make the user immune to all damage for 5 seconds. However, during this period, the user also cannot attack others. I will definitely use it well. Of course. This is something I personally customized for you. When Lucas came to take measurements, he had a look as if he wanted to cry. Ethan decided that he would have to send him gifts regularly in the future. Thank you for making such a good set of armor. I should be the one thanking you. It's been a long time since I've come across such good materials, which makes me very happy. If you entrust it to me again, I will definitely do my best to create something good. Your Highness, please come often for custom orders. You should know that until the end of the game, the equipment made in the blacksmith shop is very important in the strategy. So Ethan will definitely be a long-term customer here. After dealing with the blacksmith shop, Ethan has one last thing to do. Let's go to the western region. The most important event is happening there. On the plains to the west of the fortress city, the sound of cannons for mourning the dead echoed through the sky. To make up for the manpower shortage at Crossroad, Ethan did his best to seek help from Margrave. But Margrave no longer exuded the vigor he once had. He is now just an elderly man waiting for death. However, Ethan will not be discouraged by this, because no matter what happens, the monsters will come as scheduled. Fortunately, the construction of the city walls and the setup of the defenses are progressing relatively smoothly. Now Ethan only has one thing left to do. Let's go to the western region. That's where the most important activities are happening. From the plains to the west of the fortress city, the sound of cannons honoring the deceased echoes through the sky. The funeral has begun. This is a funeral held for the soldiers who died in the previous scene. Underneath neat gravestones, some new coffins were being buried. The number of deaths in the previous scene was not many. Ethan didn't know whether this was lucky or unlucky. The singing of the choir keeps echoing around. That's it. All the procedures were completed in an instant. When night fell, Ethan still gazed at the tombstones in front of him, unwilling to leave. A large part of the city budget is used for funerals. They also provide subsidies for the deceased. It does seem like the style of a royal family. But this is the monster frontline. This is a place where corpses pile up. There will always be moments when goodwill cannot be sustained. Margrave, did you come here just to say such things? Or is it because you have finished all your wine? For someone like me, there is never enough wine to drink. I will buy my own. But today I came for another reason. I asked the opinions of my old comrades in arms. They used to be my soldiers. I asked them if they were willing to assist you in guarding the city. So what was their response? They all said they were willing. They are willing to guard the city once again. That's great to hear. This is the best news I've heard all week. Although I don't know if those veterans can help you, they are being rearmed. The command is yours. Be very careful when sending them out. They are all old-timers like me. Thank you so much indeed. Margrave, you don't need to thank me. You should thank them. You should know that Ethan is distressed because of Margrave's stubbornness. Unexpectedly, Margrave took the initiative to help himself. That's also thanks to you going to talk to them. I'm really grateful. This old man can only help you so much. I entrust this city to you. New Lord. Good luck to you. Thank you for your assistance. I will perform well, Margrave. I will often come to borrow your wisdom in the future. What kind of wisdom is this? Remember to bring me alcohol. I am very worried about your health. I will send you an ample supply of medicinal herbs. You little rascal. If you send those, you might as well not send anything at all. That's it. Margrave waved goodbye, leaving the crossroad that had been guarded for a lifetime. Ethan watched as Margrave's figure gradually faded into the distance. He really wanted to keep Margrave in his heart. Because Margrave, despite his old age, served as the commander guarding the front line for his entire life. He would definitely be a great help in the defense battle. But Ethan cannot do that, because Margrave has already lost too much in this city. The only thing Ethan can do is to silently watch the old man's departing figure. Ethan also hopes that next time he has the chance, he can have a heart-to-heart talk with him and listen to the former lord's advice. But at this moment, he never even dreamt that there wouldn't be a next time. This would be the final conversation between the two lords of Crossroad. The Margrave, who has guarded this place for generations, has finally laid down the burden on his shoulders. From now on, Ethan will guard the thousands of lights inside the city. The Margrave waved his hand, as if bidding farewell to his past self. 2 days passed quickly. The city wall had also been completely repaired. Although many places were in a hurry to complete the work, there should be no problem with the city wall serving its intended purpose. Now everything is ready. Not only is there an abundance of supplies, and the previously vacant troops have also been replenished. Although the Twilight Legion originally had over 1,000 people, now only 300 remain standing here. But being able to have so many people come over is already very good news. The automatic defense artillery can greatly compensate for the lack of firepower. The slaughter zone prepared specifically for monsters has also been set up. Ethan now has the confidence to easily repel this enemy. But at this moment, a man wearing a mask appeared. On that vast land, only he stood quietly watching the crossroad. Just then, a soldier rode a horse from afar. His Royal Highness the Prince, reporting from the reconnaissance base. The monsters are already heading towards Crossroad. Before long, Ethan saw the vast land covered in smoke and dust. They are coming. Don't let your guard down. Since playing this game, Ethan has never had such a wonderful start. But at this moment, he noticed a figure in the smoke and dust. He didn't understand. Why would someone appear on the monster's path at this time? Your Highness, what happened to you? Lucas, I just saw someone over there. But following Ethan's hand direction to look over there is nothing but billowing smoke and dust. Dennis, didn't you see a person over there? Dennis immediately activates his clairvoyance. I didn't see anyone. His Royal Highness the Prince. Ethan looked ahead with a serious expression. He could only pray that he had just made a mistake. At this moment, the city wall began to shake. This meant that the monsters attacking the city were very close. But the more this happened, the more Ethan needed to calm down. Regardless of whether he had just mistaken his sight or how many enemies there were. The only thing Ethan could do was to stop them. Artillery unit, prepare to fire. At the moment they heard the command, the cannons on the city wall resounded one after another. Countless shells flew towards the rat swarm. In the narrow passage, they caused great damage to the rat swarm. Just one round of shelling turned hundreds of rats into mincemeat. Ethan is very clear. The characteristic of a rat swarm is the large number. Nothing else matters. And because there are too many of them in number, so they all move in groups. As long as you perform area attacks, you can take out a large group at once. Unconsciously, the battle has been going on for more than 30 minutes. We can definitely pass through this scene without any injuries. But at this moment, the mouse actually climbed over the wooden barrier blocking the road. Ethan quickly picked up the telescope to observe the situation on the battlefield. It turned out that under the wooden barrier, a pile of dead mice were stacked together. The monsters stepped on the bodies of their own kind to climb over the wooden barrier. He thought it was the easiest level to pass. But Ethan saw a mysterious figure before the scene started. But before he could think too much about it, the mouse climbed over the wooden wall again. As the bodies of the monsters continued to pile up, the wooden wall collapsed under the weight. It was unexpected for Ethan that the kill zone lost its effectiveness now. He quickly instructed the artillery troops and bed crossbow troops to change their aiming points. Fortunately, there is still a distance between the killing area and the city wall. Besides, it is filled with obstacles in the middle. But Ethan overlooked one thing. Once the restrictions are removed, the mice move too quickly. Large cannons and bed crossbows cannot aim at them at all. At that moment, Ethan couldn't think of a solution either. As a commander, he should have paid attention to the characteristics of the mice. Perhaps it was the recent influx of good news that caused him to overlook the most important thing. If this continues, there will be more mouse groups arriving at the city walls than Ethan anticipated. Just then, the automated defense turret beside them activated. In just a moment, it fired dozens of shells. And without exception, every single one of them hit the monsters below the city walls with pinpoint accuracy. Ethan was so impressed by its effectiveness. But just relying on a single automated defense turret, it still cannot change the overall situation on the battlefield. And after exhausting all the ammunition, the automated defense turret entered the reloading sequence. Now there is nothing that can stop the footsteps of these rats. Although the fragments of the giant sword have played a certain role, it is only a matter of time before they reach the city wall. Once they reach the city wall, it is inevitable that bodies will have to be used to block the rat swarm. This will definitely result in many casualties. Just then, a cannonball landed precisely in the middle of the rat swarm. And this is just the beginning. Each subsequent cannonball effectively stopped the monsters from advancing. Ethan couldn't help but wonder what was going on. That's right. That's it. Little guy, you did a great job. The Twilight Legion is actually a group of battle-hardened veterans. They provide valuable experience for the young soldiers. Cheer up. Take one step at a time. Don't push yourself too hard right from the start. It's too early to think about finishing. It's okay if your shot misses the target. Keep firing. A wall of fire can also be effective. Your Highness, you don't need to worry here. We veteran soldiers will command well. These veterans never leave the soldiers' side, acting as mentors for them. They have brought the already defeated battlefield back on track. Thanks to the active Twilight Legion, we are able to effectively attack those sewer rats. At the same time, Ethan and his team members are also responsible for their own tasks. Lucas is commanding at the front line. He is responsible for issuing precise commands based on Ethan's instructions. Even though Ethan, who does not understand the art of war, gives ambiguous commands, Lucas also understands. He then issues precise commands. Dennis is responsible for sniping. Although a bit slow, he shoots very accurately. so he has taken out all the sewer rats near the city wall one by one. Perhaps in such large-scale battles his role is not outstanding. But he has also relieved Ethan of a lot of pressure. Lily is still on site managing the city's defense artifact. She deliberately raised her voice a little, trying to make herself appear very busy. It's as if she's showing off to Ethan. I am working hard. But even so, Ethan can't let her fade into the background now. The only difference is Julia. While everyone else was busy fighting off the monsters, she was lying alone on the city wall, drinking wine. When everyone is busy fighting off monsters, Julia, however, was lying alone on the city wall, drinking wine. Although Ethan did tell her to rest first, he didn't expect Julia to be openly drinking here. The key point is that Julia is still a precious mage. Ethan can't say anything bad about her. To be honest, Ethan actually doesn't like this grandma. But so far, the front line is still being maintained very well. And the automated defense turrets have already been loaded with ammunition. Every time it fires a round, it can effectively strike the swarm of mice. Continuing like this, we will definitely be able to smoothly pass through this scene. But at this moment, Ethan once again saw an inconspicuous black dot. That black dot. It turned out to be the figure Ethan had just seen. After realizing he had not been mistaken, Ethan immediately drew a map. The moment he saw the map, he was stunned. He never expected that there would be hostile NPCs in Scene 2. Although this game will have different activities in each scene. Some of the NPCs come from the hostile kingdom or the lake underground city. They will try to hinder the progress of the scene in their own way. But it's only Scene 2 now. It's not the time for hostile NPCs to appear at all. And Knight is not here right now. He can't inquire about the current situation either. Dennis, you saw that man, didn't you? His Royal Highness the Prince. Are you referring to that troubadour? Do not hesitate. Aim for his head and shoot immediately. But he doesn't look like a monster. He is human like us. He didn't remember who that person was until he heard Dennis mention Troubadour Ethan. Shoot him in the head before the guy starts playing the flute. But Dennis hesitated. His hands were shaking. He didn't want to aim the weapon at a human. You said you wanted to become the gun in my hand, didn't you? If you don't want to see more people die, aim at his head immediately. But everything is too late. A melodic flute sound drifted up to the city wall. Ethan slowly turned around and looked towards Troubadour, only to see Troubadour placing the flute at the edge of his mouth. The supposed pleasant flute sound made Ethan a little frightened. At that moment, all the sewer rats stopped moving. The soldiers on the city wall also stood still. They did not understand why the rats suddenly stopped. All the rats emitted sharp cries, as if in response to the troubadour's flute. They surged towards the same spot. Where is it? Where is their destination? It's the center of the city wall. There it is. It's the section they just finished repairing today. Cannons and bed crossbow troops. Change all the aiming points. Concentrate all fire. Almost at the moment when Ethan gave the order, the cannons and bed crossbows all fired at once. But it was still too late. The situation on the battlefield was constantly changing. The changes in the monster's actions were too sudden. The acceleration of the sewer rat left the soldiers no time to react. But what happened next left everyone stunned. The sewer rat at the very front actually slammed into the city wall and died. And this was not the end of it all. The monsters that arrived afterwards also fiercely slammed into it. It slammed into that section of the city wall that had just been repaired this morning. The wandering poet brought the invitation from the Grim Reaper. The melodious flute played the trumpet of attack. The monsters swarmed towards the fortress one after another. The mice didn't hesitate at all. They fiercely rammed into the city wall. They hit the city wall that had just been repaired this morning. Keep in mind that the city wall was repaired just a few hours ago. Although everyone did their best in the insufficient time, it is inevitable that the city wall is not in perfect condition. Because only the cracked parts were repaired, it is inevitable that there are still some gaps. Now those monsters are using their bodies to attack the gaps. They use their heads to hit the wall, and their toenails to pry open the iron plate. They use their teeth to bite and crush the stones, step by step dismantling the city wall. Methods that other monsters cannot accomplish. Only the mouse can achieve it. Even if it costs them their lives, they are willing to do it. But Ethan has no way to deal with all of this. At that moment, I don't know if it was Ethan's illusion. He seemed to see the troubadour smiling. Troubadour is an NPC from Lakewater Kingdom. He can give commands to monsters with his flute, referred to by players as the flute-playing man. Take aim at his head quickly. Make sure he doesn't escape. But Dennis' hands have been shaking uncontrollably. Troubadour seems to be teasing. He adjusted his hat under Dennis' watchful eye. Dennis, what exactly are you waiting for? Dennis was unable to shoot the crossbow in his hand until Troubadour disappeared, but instead, after he escaped, he relieved himself by setting down the stone crossbow. I'm very sorry, His Royal Highness the Prince. Although he is the enemy, aiming at a human for me. But Ethan can also understand. After all, Dennis' original profession was a healer. But many of their enemies are also humans. Fighting against humans in the future is inevitable. If this problem cannot be overcome, Dennis' combat effectiveness will be greatly reduced. Let's save this question for after the war. Right now, Ethan has more important issues to address. Concentrate all firepower. Make sure those monsters don't get close to the city wall. Julia, you have something to do. Hurry up and appear before me. I knew you would need me. I have been ready for this for a long time. You asked me to turn all those rats into dust. Powerful lightning struck from the sky in an instant, landing directly in the group of rats in front of the city wall. Lily, prepare the flame emission artifact. Use it all at maximum power. Yes, Your Highness. Launch the flame emission artifact. The next second, a powerful flame bursts out from the artifact. At once, the area in front of the city